Hi there, friends. This is Mando 23, and I'm very grateful to have an international guest, someone who knows better than anybody of track competitions. He trains an Olympic athlete as Yvonne Hayek, as we know. She participated in Rio 2016, and to me, it's a great honor to having me on my show, which I'm grateful because you are the second international guest in my show, which I'm very grateful for that opportunity, and we will discuss many things so far in probably 8 minutes of your life, but I know it will be very helpful for those generations to want to compete in the track fields and in whatever sport they decide to be. How are you, Drew?
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Drew, I want to know how all began in sports. I mean, how was your first contact with sports? Like, I don't know, for instance, if you get directly to the track fields to sports.
Well, I grew up in Arizona, and I was just an all-around athlete, but never played organized sports until high school. I just liked playing different sports. And my freshman year of high school, I started playing football, American football.
Yeah.
The reason I played soccer was my track coach was also a soccer coach. So he required all the track guys to go out for soccer. So fortunately for me, I developed a liking for soccer, which helped me for track and field. And that's what led to track and field. I was a really good football player, American football player, but I didn't like football as much as I like track and field.
Whoa.
Track and field is, you're an individual.
Yeah.
You're out there and it's just, So that was my first kind of introduction to track and field in high school, standing on a long jump runway, and everyone is waiting for you to compete. It's not like a quarterback or a forward in soccer that's passed. So that was my...
Okay. So it is quite interesting because, as you mentioned, like you play several sports or different sports that requires different set of skills. Of course, it's not the same. I mean, competing in football is not the same competing in soccer. Of course, it's not the same competing in track competitions. Of course, of that. But many people, I guess, and this is my guessing. Again, it is not a complete definition of a professional athlete. What it takes to be a professional athlete in your perspective, because you train a professional athlete, which is Yvonne, it takes to sacrifice your time, or the time you sacrifice, it always has a meaning to those who want to be not an amateur, an amateur, but a pro athlete. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of sacrifice beyond whatever it takes. I want to hear about you in that regard, that perspective.
Well, I'll tell you, it takes a lot of motivation, energy, and sacrifice. And when I was coming, it was a love of the sport. The ability to go to the next level and become a professional like I did as well. I competed in the decathlon for the U.S. and went to the Olympic trials and traveled and competed in Europe and had an incredible professional experience myself. And that, the number one in the world for me was there was nothing better. There's nothing else I wanted. I was focusing on, but also good coaching staff. And that's where I was introduced to my coach, Lindley and Hunt. My coach getting the highest level possible and for over 10 level to prepare other athletes. So when I was introduced to Yvonne, it was amazing because I could see the drive in her the second I met her. The first time out at the track, I said, this woman is driven. And it takes that. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't want to put the work and the work ethic to become successful, you're going to fail. So when you find an athlete like that, Yvonne, for example, she was so determined that she was going to do everything it took in her power to become successful. And that's one of the true signs. If you have that focus and determination and you have a love for your sport, you're going to be successful.
I agree on that, everything you said before, and I believe it so. I mean, it isn't about just being an athlete, because as you mentioned, if people are driven to our objectives, if our goals, I think it will be much easier to get what you want to be, right? Because everyone has the dreams, and we dream about, like, I want to be that kind of pro athlete. I want to be that kind of person. I think it requires more than just dream. I think it requires a lot of combinations out there, such as talent, of course, such as passion, and such as determination, as you mentioned, as you were able, to find the right time, the right place, Yvonne. And I think you're doing a magnificent job, because after all, being part of the Olympics is not an easy job. I mean, I would not consider it a job. But what I want to say is, like, it is an honor, it is a privilege to be around many other athletes around the world who are trying to put a name on the Olympics. But I want to ask you the next thing before we continue. Like, for instance, okay, you find Yvonne, you mentioned you were in the Olympics and all the experience and everything is you're telling me at this time. Have you ever just felt that emotion or that feeling? I'm sorry, of that you were close so to winning, or you were just at the top of your game, but you didn't make it? Is that part of the frustration of any athlete and any person, or you just have to assimilate that scenario, lose? I mean, you have to assimilate that losing as scenario. I don't know, because I have not been able to compete. I cannot have an opinion about it. But as you have all experience, I want to know about that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. Again, competing on the level that I did for the number of years I did, my goal was to make it to the Olympics, and I fell short of that goal. I was number 5 in '96, and they take the top 3. So I was at that exact point. Always different. I'm going to do better, but so. Now, short of my goal of look at the things that I gained, traveled around a world record. I look at the highest level and say that. And I would wait for the way things work, opportunity to realize her dream. I was able to achieve making it to the games with somebody and taking my dream and helping her to succeed in hers. And to me, that's the greatest gift of all. All the years of training and most importantly, sacrifice that I put in for myself, she's doing as well for her, and for her to achieve that goal, and hope that's the greatest gift.
I mean, I believe that, again, I totally 100% believe everything you said, because I think there is kind of this dream that, okay, for any kind of reasons, because you get older, you get without less energy, but it doesn't mean that you have to stop the dream. And again, this thing, all this process that you have been doing with Yvonne, again, I want to just give you a round of applause, because I think you're doing a magnificent job. You're 100% motivated and concentrated to give the best of you in terms of Yvonne, and I think this is something greater than life. And again, I just want to say,
I want to say thank you for that, and just to where you're coming with that is the most important thing with young athletes coming up, because that the future of all sports is the athletes that are coming up. And I think sometimes they do get caught up too much in the hype or the money or the equipment and all that. But when you have pushed yourself to that level and become an athlete on the world stage, and you carry yourself in the way you should and become the person you want to be, that's the ultimate success. The gold medal, the bronze medal, all that's secondary to who you become as a human being. And I think, money, the fame and all that's going to go. I know many of gold medalists who can walk down the street and nobody knows who they are. But when they've achieved that and they've had that satisfaction and they have the quality of training and life experiences, there's nothing greater than joy. To put yourself in that position, work your whole life and achieve success, and you can walk through the rest of your life with your head up high.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because I have to. I mean, I'm young. I'm a young person, but I've been able to see different athletes along the time. That of course they have a lot of fame, they have a lot of power, but it seems like they are not prepared for live behind everything they win at the time that they were athletes. So I think that's the biggest mistake. When you don't prepare yourself as a person, I think that's the biggest mistake, because as you mentioned, Drew, and I agree on that.
Yes.
One thing is the sport, one thing is your talent, but the other hand is you as a person, and I believe the person stays all the time. The athlete stays just for a while. It's just like, hello, I'm here, and then it goes. And I think the most beautiful part of this, I mean, being an athlete or being a person itself, I think is how you handle in every single situation. And again, just a final question before we go: how do you see the Mexican Olympic athletes for the next Olympics? Because we always try to succeed.
Absolutely.
But how you approach
Hello?
or how you see? Yeah, I'm here.
I'm sorry, you dropped for a second, but I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was asking you how you see the next generation of Mexican athletes in the Olympics, because we have this illusion of having the success, but it turns out that we go to the Olympics, it doesn't happen anything. But I don't know what it takes to be in, or what is missing of us. I mean, all the athletes, and I'm speaking in plural, and that's we, because I'm Mexican. I'm a proud Mexican. But again, as a people, we always wait too much. Then it turns out that they just have the chance and they don't get anything, or they're not. And now I don't know. It's kind of complicated, but I know. And you understand me, like, what is the approach, or what are the expectations for the Mexican athletes?
Well, I think I did a clinic in Monterrey with
I
Yvonne.
She told me about
it. And I was just blown away at the response by the coaches who were just eager to learn. And I think, it starts with the coaches, and it starts with getting, the fundamentals of track and field. You have so many coaches with different philosophies on sprint mechanics and jump mechanics, but the fundamentals don't change. From back in the 50s and 60s, very little has changed. But I think athletes are constantly trying to find the newest, shortest, different technique in order to become more successful. And the majority of the fundamentals of track and field hasn't changed. It's the mindset of the coaches and sometimes the athletes. So if you can get the athletes to believe and get coaching that teaches fundamentals and reinforces biomechanics and fundamentals of proper sprinting and jumping, the Mexican athletes, I mean, the future is wide open, because I listen to the coaches, and I've seen some of the athletes, and working with another one here in Houston, and the fundamentals, once they're taught and reinforced, I think there's going to be a lot of success. A lot of success. It's just getting the athlete. Sometimes athletes are taught things a certain way. Is you have to get the athlete to believe that what you're trying to teach them, you may get a little slower at first because you're relearning, but then you apply that over and over, and then in the competition, over a period of time, you reap the rewards. You jump farther, you run faster. And Yvonne's case, same thing. Had to relearn long jump, and she was a very successful long jumper.
Okay. Drew, again, thank you very much for taking me this call. It is a great honor.
I'm going to put my ego and my pride in the training methods are going to get me to where I'm at. And that's what happened with Yvonne. And I remember in Monterey, looked up at me after the fourth jump. She had a foul, and she said, "Coach, what do I do?" I said, "You do the same thing. You move back, run off the board, you'll achieve it." And she did it. And it was that simple. It's getting the athlete, even when they don't want, find ways to motivate them, believe in the technique, commit to the technique, and then it just comes. So a combination of consistency and desire.
That's great. Drew, once again, I mean, I appreciate everything you have mentioned, and you are responding to me. Again, it is a great show. To me, it's a great honor. Again, I will say it again and again and again. It's quite amazing to talk to you. Thanks for having me. I mean, did you accept the call? And I'm looking forward to meeting.